morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is James Duffmere, and I want to welcome you to the KSAM Speaks podcast. Now, this is a podcast where topics involving law enforcement are discussed while offering real and transparent answers. Now, we are not trying to change the world, but just change one part at a time. Here's your host, KSAM.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Appreciate you, Def, for that intro. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to KSAM Speaks podcast. I'm your host, KSAM. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the Mississippi Goon Squad. Mississippi Goon Squad. This is the first ever YouTube podcast video for KSAM Speaks. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally here and up running on YouTube. So, appreciate y'all for being patient on that. I know I've been saying for a while that was coming, but baby, we are here today. But before we get started, like I do on every episode, I want to discuss the number of officer suicide rates and the number of officers shot and killed in the line of duty. So for this current day right here, we are looking at 19 total officers who have committed suicide. 19, ladies and gentlemen. That number continues to increase, which is a problem. And we must continue to ask ourselves, how can we save the people that's out there selflessly putting themselves out there for us? What kind of resources we can offer to keep these numbers from getting higher and higher? The next that I want to get into is the officers killed and shot in the line of duty. To this current day, we're looking at 63 officers shot and 7 killed in the line of duty. Again, 63 and 7. Those numbers are still way too high for the numbers of officers that were shot in the line of duty. So I'm gonna just keep bringing attention to these issues and hope that we could do something. Lawmakers could do something, whether it's harsher penalties on these people that's committing these vicious attacks on law enforcement. So moving along, the Mississippi Goon Squad. Mississippi Goon Squad. For those that's not familiar, I'm gonna give the backstory on the Mississippi Goon Squad. So this incident took place, I believe, in January 24 of 23, which took place in Rankin County, Mississippi, which is just east of Jackson, Mississippi. And some that just to take into account that this is also the home of one of the highest percentages of Black residences in any major U.S. cities. So what happened here was you had 6 white police officers. And of course, y'all know that I don't like to always bring race into the incident, but of course, this incident definitely has to be, you have to state the race. So 6 white police officers and 2 Black men. So it began in January of 2023, where you had 2 Black men who were staying with a white woman in a house in Braxton, Mississippi. So somebody notified one of the 6 white police officers that they had 2 Black men staying with a white woman in Mississippi. One of the officers texted another officer who then put, I think they were using the WhatsApp group message deal, who then texted another group of white officers asking if they were available for a mission. So y'all kind of see where this is going already. In those text messages, it was stated that no bad mug shots, which was a green light to say that use excessive force on parts of the body that wouldn't appear in the booking photo. So let's set this up right here. Let's just set this up and just kind of see where we about to go with this. So you have somebody that texts one officer who knows that this one officer was dirty enough to be asked to do this favor. That should be red flag number 1. Then you had this officer who got asked this favor that knew another officer who was also dirty enough that would be willing to do something like this. So now we building this web right here. So then you have the second officer who knew 4 other officers that was dirty enough as police officers to take out and do this vicious attack. So you see where we going right here. So continuing with the story, and I'm not saying the officer's name because that's not important for me to state their names. But these officers one officer were instructed to cover the back door of the property during their illegal entry. So what happened was these officers got together and entered this home as a search warrant was being done. So they covered their bases because they're actual, police officers. So once inside the homes, the officers then mocked the victims with racial slurs and shocked them with stun guns. They also handcuffed them, poured milk on them, poured alcohol on them, and chocolate syrup all over their faces. So just right there, they being treated like animals. And some people probably won't even treat animals this bad. So after they done those things to them, they were continued to be assaulted with sex toys. Sex toys. Then they forced them to strip naked and shower together to clean up all the mess from the milk and alcohol and syrup and stuff like that. While one of the officers guarded the bathroom to make sure that they didn't escape. This is where it really, really takes a turn. So after they get them out the bathroom, one of the black men was shot in the mouth, and it caused laceration to his tongue and broke his jaw. And then they devised a plan for a cover-up. So they then pressured the black guy to go along with their story in order for him to keep quiet in exchange for his freedom. So they already came up with this plan to say that they was doing a search warrant on this residence for drugs to commit their crime. So in order for this one black guy to have his freedom, here we go, freedom, the deputies agreed to plant drugs and false charges, which stood against the two black guys for months. So in order for one of the guys who was shot in the mouth to be free, he had to go along with their story. Man, this just hurts to even bring this story to y'all. Yes, it happened so long ago, but the reason why I want to bring this to y'all is because just here recently, and I'll read the sentencing, but all 6 of these officers were found guilty, rightfully so. And they were also sentenced to time in prison. So you had 2 officers out of the 6 out of the group. So the 2 oldest officers in the group, or the oldest men in the group, threatened to kill all the other officers if they spoke up. Which I believe it was the 2 that initially came up with the plan. So now you have 4 more other officers who've been threatened to keep quiet. So we can see how bad this is starting to turn. So on April 12th of last year, one of the officers ended up showing the investigators a WhatsApp text thread where the officers discussed their plan and what happened. All the 5 other officers apparently threw their cell phones in the river, so their phones were unable to be captured, to be dumped and get all that information. So, man, and this definitely hurts law enforcement, because every time that you have officers like myself and thousands of officers across the country that's out here trying to do good and rebuild this bridge that's been so tainted by 6 officers like such, you get stories like this that happens. And it's super frustrating, because it's like this is a clear case of abusing your power. And I'm so glad that they got their time. And let me read that while we're talking about their time. So one of them got 27 years. One of them got 10 years. One of them have 40 years. One of them have 20 years. And 2 of them were sentenced to 17.5 years, all in prison. 17.5 years, all in prisons. And it's just, again, heartbreaking because, man, I had this conversation with somebody here recently talking about how people are treated by law enforcement. And I was like, man, it's simple. My motto is I treat everybody I come in contact with as if they were my loved one. How would I want somebody to treat my son, my wife, my grandmother, my brothers, and my sisters? And in law enforcement, if we all tap into that mindset of how we are treating people, no matter what they've done, no matter what crime they've done, doesn't deserve them to be treated like an animal in such case like this. And it's just heartbreaking that humans would even think that was okay and then try to cover it up. All because, and I'm sure there's more to that other story of them staying with these two guys staying with a white woman. But we can also tap into that racial world. If some people are living in today's society thinking that race isn't real, clearly this has some racial push on it. We can all agree with that. But don't be blind to the fact that things are happening like this that's not related to law enforcement. Don't be so naive to think that this is not happening elsewhere across the country. But let's focus on the law enforcement aspect of it. Why do people still have a hard time trusting law enforcement in 2024? You hear stories like this. You hear stories that's far more worse than this. You hear stories about officers abusing their power on traffic stops, sexually assaulting women, making these people do things to get out of tickets. So when you have so much power like this, if you don't check yourself, you could be real detrimental to your own career. So just imagine if a young 21-year-old, because in most cases, in most states and departments, you have to be about 21 years old in order to even apply. Just imagine a 21-year-old fresh out of college, maybe have some life experience, maybe not much life experience. You give them all this power to go out there and have the ability to, take one's life if it comes down to that, but remove people's their civil, you in control of their freedom and their liberties and stuff. And the people that we trust and that we hold to such high standard commits an act like this. But too many times people get mad at law enforcement, but it's the justice system too. And luckily for these guys, I said luckily for them, but not lucky for them, but they got some pretty harsh sentences. And honestly, let me see. For all the years, it was the one who got the most. That's not enough. That's not enough. Because what tends to happen too is they behave in prison, then they get out on good behavior. They get probation or parole. And then now it's like, cool, I'm back out here on these streets. People like this don't need to be on the streets. Just like people say criminals don't need to be out on the streets. Men like this definitely don't need to be back on the streets. Because you're just a criminal wearing a uniform. Yeah. Just a criminal wearing a uniform. Because if they got caught doing this, just imagine all other stuff that haven't came out. I think one of them got a little bit more time due to another incident that was brought against him. I couldn't find that story, but if they were bold enough to do this, Just imagine the small stuff that they done that was swept underneath the rug, or that wasn't even spotlighted. So, ladies and gentlemen, all I'm here to say is that we have to do better. We have to do better on both aspects of the coin. You know, we have to do better in talking about the number of suicides and officers shot in the line of duty. We must do better. What's so frustrating for me with just these numbers of officers shot and killed is the lack of attention that it gets by major news outlets, by political parties, by the president. And it's like, why? Because let another incident like, you know, a controversial shooting happen where it's a white officer and a black suspect, black victim, and it has enough power to create some racial tension, because that's the narrative that they want to push. Watch how fast that gets all over social media. But when we will take a stand and push and show that when there's enough going to be enough of, we tired of our loved ones, because the people that's out there getting shot and killed have somebody that loves them, fathers, wives, mothers, dads, grandparents, brothers, sisters, uncles. So when will it be important enough for us to make a stand and make a push to our legislators, our councils, you know, mayors, city managers? Because it's never a problem until the problem comes knocking at your front door. Never a problem until the problem comes knocks at your front door. So all I'm here to say is that we must do better and fight for these situations, because it is not okay. It is not okay. And I will continue to bring spotlight to these numbers and these statistics until we can come together as a country, not as a community, not as a city, not as a family. This will take the whole country to come together and make a change. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is all for this episode of KSAM Speaks podcast. Thank y'all for tuning in. Again, make sure y'all like, share, subscribe for the new YouTube channel, because we live, baby. We are here. But as always, before I leave, I want to leave y'all with an encouragement word. This one come from my boy Dev, though. Shout out to Dev. A lot of y'all problems come from not putting people, excuse me. A lot of y'all problems come from not putting people in their place the first time they tried you. A lot of y'all problems come from not putting people in their place the first time they tried you. Sit on that. But that is all for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all for tuning in again.